Greetings, Quester, and welcome to the Bards Corner with Matt and Heather. And joining us today, a very special guest.
Hello, Kee.
Hey!
Thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Where are you at, Matt?
I'm in Nottingham.
Robin Hood country, that sounds great.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Gothenburg, the southwest of Sweden.
I hear it's a beautiful place.
It is really cool, and it's actually the rock and roll city of Sweden, I would say. Traditionally, it's a working class city with, a great tradition in hard rock. Yeah,
it's one of the places I've always wanted to visit. Bands always seem to be playing at.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's got a pretty interesting history as well. I mean, it was once upon a time it was a Dutch colony, so before they, rearranged the city, it was like a little Amsterdam. There was a lot of canals and stuff all over the place.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us today, Kee. First off, just to start off, I wanted to ask, your latest band, Kiev Hearts, it's got you on lead guitar, Tommy Hart of Fear Warning on vocals, Ken Sandin of Alien on bass, and Alessandro Del Vecchio on keyboard. So what brought you all together? How did that band form?
The thing is, it was the instigators were Serafino and Mario at Frontiers Records, and they had an idea of putting me and Tommy in the same band, and they pretty much called me and asked me how I felt about that idea. And I thought it was a brilliant idea, which I never thought of myself, but now when they brought it up, it sounded like a great idea. We talked about it and we pretty much straight away started recording. Well, I brought Ken Sandin with me. He plays in Kee Marcello band, so we go way back. We played together since 2000. So he came along, and I know of Alessandro Del Vecchio, and in earlier occasions, I'm signed to Frontiers with my solo band. So these were not strangers by any means.
So that's how you all came together. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, your album, Key of Hearts, was released on the 15th of September. How do you feel about the response to it so far?
It's been amazing. I mean, it's been selling really well. Not surprisingly, in some of the strongest territories for fair warning in Europe, like Asia and South America, but even in America. So it's doing surprisingly well. I don't know what we did expect, really. It's really hard nowadays to break a new band and expect to sell any units, but yeah, we're giving away units, so it's looking good.
Do you feel it's a bit easier to break a new band, though, when you've got people that are already well known from existing bands? I mean, Fair Warning are very popular. You've played with some very well known, very big bands in the past as well, so that's got to help boost the interest, doesn't it?
It definitely does. And I've been involved in other projects with famous names, but I think me and Tommy were kind of standout members of each of our bands. And I think people are curious about the combination, how's the marriage between me and Tommy, so to speak. And I think it really works. That was one of the things that surprised me, that it felt like we've been playing together for 10 years already, which is always a good sign, when things are effortless. The best music comes out of that.
It does feel like you've both been able to bring your various styles to Key of Hearts. It's not like one person is dominating.
No, that's true. That's also another good thing. I mean, I've been in not to mention any names, but I've been in projects where, one person color the project a lot, whilst the other sort of team tend to follow that direction. Right here, it was like a witch's brew from the get-go. We got in there, and then the mixture of the two of us was the result,
How long went into the writing and recording of the Key of Hearts album?
Actually, we didn't write a whole deal for this album. It's mostly Alessandro Del Vecchio and some outside writers. And I thought that was really interesting, to get into a project not being the main writer, which I'm obviously used to go in with the guitar player's point of view and just dig into a new project, concentrating on the melody lines and getting the right arrangements for the guitar and all that. And so it's been 100% focused on melodies for this, you know.
Because I know Alessandro also, he produced, mixed and recorded the album, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's playing the keyboards, of course, you know. So he's putting a big mark on this album for sure.
What's he like to work with?
Oh, he's great. Really, really calm and nice, and you know, easy to talk to. You know, great. Never a problem in the world.
When you listen to the Key of Hearts album, what's your favourite song on there, would you say?
It varies right now. I mean, it's still kind of new for us. I mean, so right now it's Mama Don't Cry. I think it's really interesting because it's got that verse, that big verse, sort of melodramatic almost, very melodic in a Europe journey way, and then it goes into a more major sounding, you know, more positive chorus, and I think the contrast is very interesting. That's what I like the most right now.
I'm glad you said that, because that's actually my favourite song on the album as well.
Oh, really? Great.
Yeah. So what plans do you have to tour with Key of Hearts?
Well, yeah, we're talking about it right now. We're getting a lot of offers, you know, because of the success of the sales right now. So we're getting offers from South America, the US, Southeast Asia, namely Japan, where both Europe and Fair Warning were really big. So it's looking really good right now. We have to, with us right now, we're both busy. Tommy is right now in the States, and I'm working on a show which I'm going to do November and December here in Sweden. So we're going to start thinking about this early next year, and we're aiming to do some major festivals starting the summer of 2018 and then keep on touring during the fall.
As well as guitars, on a lot of your solo albums, you've sang lead vocals. So I was wondering, when you're working on a project, how do you decide whether to do the vocals yourself or bring in another singer? Do you have a particular process for that?
Not really. I mean, sometimes it's a matter of writing a song and all of a sudden you're realizing, maybe I shouldn't sing this. Maybe this guy should sing it, you know? Actually, the song will tell you, the project will tell you who's going to be on the record. It's kind of funny, you know? It's like Keith Richards once said, you actually don't write the songs. They're in the air. You just take them down, you know?
I like that quote.
Like fruit. This is an interesting thought. But I think within the projects you're doing, you feel which way it's going to take, you know, which direction.
Now, I was reading the other day that your first band, Easy Action, was the first Scandinavian band to sign a worldwide label deal with a US label.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, back in the early 80s, the music industry really didn't feel that bands that did not come from the UK or America was credible, you know, when it came to rock and roll. The only exception being the Scorpions, and they broke by touring like crazy for decades before they got their first major record in America. And they actually opened up a lot of those for us. That it was around that time that it opened up a little bit. But Easy Action, my then band, was the first band to ever get signed by a US major label. And we got signed by Seymour Stein, which is a legend, a Warner legend. He signed Madonna and a lot of big acts. He's one of those really, you know, like Walter Yetnikow for Sony and Ahmed Ertegun and Clyde Davis. He's one of those names. And the thing is, I'm not quite sure he even knew we were Swedish. we had an American Indian guy, Sunny Tandon, was our manager, and he sounded very American. And they met at Midden, you know, the music fair in Nice. And in Cannes, sorry, and we all had stage names. I mean, we all had Swedish names, but we changed the stage names for this project, Easy Action. So I'm not quite sure he ever knew that we were Swedish. And I'm also quite sure that the manager appreciated that if he was stressed that we were Swedish, maybe we would lose the deal, you know?
You really think it would have had a negative impact?
Oh, it definitely had back then. I know loads of examples where people got turned down because, I mean, oh, you guys from Scandinavia. Oh, all right. We'll call you, don't call us. That kind of thing, you know?
What do you think was the reason behind that?
I think the credibility, first of all. Obviously, people weren't speaking English the same way they do today. And also logistically, it's cheaper to, you know, have a British band signed to Virgin in Britain, you know, than flying people back and forth. But with Easy Action, they started to do that. I mean, we were signed to Warner, and the closest office was in London, so they flew us back and forth all the time, and it seemed to work out all right.
Do you feel that then opened the gates for a lot of other bands to have the same opportunity?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, before that, it was nothing. You know, not even ABBA had a major label. I think that was partly by choice because their manager had a different idea of how to pursue their careers. But you know, after we signed with Easy Action, then I think Europe was next, and then Treat, Alien, 220 Volts, and you know, all of them. So that was like the door opener.
That's quite a major milestone then for Scandinavian rock.
Yeah, I would say so.
Now, this is something I don't get to ask very often, but is it true that you race horses?
Yeah, it's actually true. It's actually harness race driving. It's not that big in England. I know you're more into what is it, gallop, when you're actually
horseback riding, yeah.
Horse. This is you're sitting in a wagon behind the horse, you know.
So how did that come about?
Well, it started with me being in a kind of silly TV show where celebrities compete, you know, trying to learn how to become a harness race driver. And I won the whole thing, you know. It was a lot of different people, like some Olympic athlete, and it was an actor, and you know, all kinds of different people. And for some reason, I looked like I had some sort of talent for this, and I won the whole thing. And after the show, I actually got myself a license. So I do this once in a while. It's really difficult to get really good, though. It's like somebody would tell me, you know, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar like you, Kee. Next year, I'm going to be there where you're now. It doesn't happen that way. But to me, it's like a hobby right now.
It's a very, what's the word? It's a very unusual leap from lead guitars to horse racing.
It's very, very, very big leap from that. But the thing is, maybe that's the charm about it, because it's completely different from my universe, you know. Venues and backstage and arenas, and then do something completely different. Go to the stables, socialize with the horses, you know, getting ready for races and all that. It's a completely different world, and it's really nice. I mean, it's like Zen for me.
You mentioned that this all started because of a TV show. I've heard that you met your wife while you were appearing on a TV show as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It was actually a TV show called The Music Match or something like that. And I was competing against Janne Schaffer and Mats Wilander. And those guys are both the guitar players of ABBA. And we were competing in this sort of music quiz show, if you want. And she was the producer of that show. And I was living in Stockholm back then. And I was in Gothenburg for one day to record this show. And it was just one of those, we said, it was click. We clicked, and that was it. That's 22 years ago.
In English, we say love at first sight.
Love at first sight. That's exactly what it was, actually.
Now, I have to ask about your time with Europe, because I love Prisoners in Paradise and I love Superstitious. But it was said when Europe reunited that you weren't going to rejoin because of musical differences, but it's come out since then that there were issues with Joey and John and there were financial issues too. Can I just ask, have those been resolved, and could you imagine yourself ever playing with Europe again?
Actually, we're on the way of resolving the financial issues. A good start is that right now in America, there's been a precedent case where performers actually get, they get back the rights for their albums after 30 years. And the final countdown was a couple of years ago, 2016, and next year is Out of This World. So that's a good start to, we can go back and we can even do an audit. We don't know what the record company has been doing since we quit, so to speak. So that's a good start for that. And for sure, I could see myself doing something like a guest performance or anything like that, but I can never see myself going back into the band full time.
Because you're listening to Kiev Hearts and some of your more recent stuff, it's definitely different to the material that Europe are doing now.
Yeah, we have some musical difference in terms of direction and all that, and that's not the kind of music I would like to play, so that would be a no. But if we did like a sort of a special occasion gig where we would perform Prison of Paradise or Out of This World songs, I'm all up for it. Why not?
With how things finished up with Europe, looking back on your time with them, do you still feel that was a positive experience for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously it was an amazing time, and I would never want to be without it, It was from the get-go, it was just like amazing, like a dream come true. And even when we called it hiatus in 1993, I guess it was, a lot of people wrongly wrote that was because of grunge. But the thing is, we were still selling millions of units, And if you do that, the record company, they don't think about trends that way. They want to have a new album. So they were actually on our case and really wanted an album after Prisoners in Paradise. But we, within the group, we were the ones that felt that we didn't really feel at home with the grunge scene at all. So we didn't see ourselves in the whole mix of it all, So we decided to call it hiatus. But the record company, they were on our case to get a new album.
Because that was about the time you started to pursue your solo career, wasn't it?
Yeah, I started around then, and in '95 I released the first solo album, Shine On. Yeah.
Now I just wanted to ask about your book, because you released an autobiography called "The Rock Star That God Forgot." Can I just ask what made you decide to write that?
Well, the thing is, it's sort of a no-brainer. I mean, I've been experiencing a lot of stuff and some really groundbreaking stuff to be a Swedish musician. So I just felt like I wanted to share my experiences, and both good and bad. I mean, I didn't really want to leave anything out. I just want to tell the story like I experienced it. So I wrote it in my very particular way of speaking Swedish, which is kind of hard to explain, but I come from the north of Sweden, but I sort of grew up in Stockholm as well. So, basically I'm a hick that went to the big city when I was in my teens. So I speak like a mixture of Umeå accent, Stockholm slang, and then American corporate bullshit and music business lingo. So the language I use in the book has proven to be very difficult to translate. That's why it's not out in English yet. I had 3 translators having a go at the material, and this doesn't cut it. Nothing made it, But it's also why it became a bestseller in Sweden, because it's really different, you know.
Because it was a very open book, wasn't it? I mean, I've not been able to read it because I can't read the Swedish translation, but I've seen a few excerpts that have been published, and it details like your problems with Europe and with substance abuse. Was it difficult to write openly about those things?
Not really. I mean, I had to give the family a hands up before it was released, obviously, you know, what was going to happen. But I'm quite convinced my kids didn't think I was knitting backstage back in the Europe. You know? So that was really not the hard part of the process at all.
Now, you wrote in there, for example, about cocaine, and sex, drugs and rock and roll was a big part of the industry back then. But what advice would you give to, say, a young musician just leaving school, entering the industry? What advice would you give him to avoid those pitfalls?
Don't start. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's today it's even, you know, as accessible as it was back then. Back then it was trivialized, especially in America. I mean, people thought about cocaine as they think about energy drinks today, basically. It was a party opener, you know, that's what it was. But today it's very accessible, and I think, you know, the general feeling I have is some people are trying to downsize the importance of doing cocaine. But it's really bad for you. You know, you should never get started doing that. And it really slows everything up. Although it feels like the world is spinning faster, but you're slowing down. You're not getting things done. If you really want to think about your career, don't do it. You know, concentrate on the career instead. Become a workaholic. That's the same thing, but much more fun.
Good advice. Now, thinking of your career so far, what would you say have been the biggest highlight or the proudest moment of your career, and what would you describe as the biggest challenge that you faced in your career?
Well, the biggest highlights is possibly, you know, the first time you go on a real big stadium tour, you know, with all that comes with it, you know, that was almost unreal. I was like, looking back at it right now, when I remember feeling, wow, I'm living my dream right now. This is exactly what I wanted, but only 10 times bigger. I would never have imagined. That must have been, you know, somewhere 1988, perhaps, you know. And also the fact that I met all my, you know, idols and talked to them like friends, like equals. That was also mind-blowing, you know. Because like everybody else, I started off as a teenage kid in my room, you know, turning my shitty guitar into a shitty amp, trying to, you know, learn some riffs from my favorite records. That's like how a lot of people get started. And now I was there. And the difficult thing is probably to, you know, to maintain the quality. Once you're up there, you know that you have to redo it, but in a different way. On the first albums of any project you do, you have like years and years of ideas that you put into one album. And then you have to do pretty fast a follow-up album. And then you have no time at all to do an even better album with a slightly different angle. And I think that is very challenging every time I'm exposed to it.
Do you feel when you've got that kind of pressure on you that it almost makes it more difficult to produce good material?
Yes, I don't like that pressure at all, you know, and nowadays I try to not involve myself in projects where I'm at risk for being exposed to that kind of pressure, you know. And that has been a fantastic thing with Key of Hearts, since, I mean, the key word for Key of Hearts is effortless. Everything has just been like running water. I mean, we started working on this album, and before we knew it, it was finished. And it turned out exactly like we wanted it. That's amazing. Not a lot of projects work that easy, you know.
It's I suppose the fact that you were very familiar with Ken, you've worked together before, that must help contribute to that as well.
Oh, definitely. It was my suggestion to bring Ken into the mix. I mean, we've been working since 2000, and we're like brothers, you know. We don't have to talk. We just play, and you know, we're like MIDI fight. You want to talk keyboard lingo, like connected, you know, electronically or psychologically. It really works when we play together.
Can I just ask, what projects are you working on at the moment?
Right now, I'm writing for a show called Rock the Night, which is my first show. I was in Rock of Ages, the Swedish production of Rock of Ages. We did several pieces of that in Stockholm and Gothenburg. And after that, I worked on a concert version of Rock of Ages without the theatrical bit, just the music from it. And, you know, for Rock of Ages in Sweden, they wrote me a part in it where I'm playing myself.
I heard that because you're basically a household name in Sweden.
Yeah. And when they offered me to play in Rock of Ages, they flew me to London, and we saw the production there. And after, I said, well, I can't really see myself in there, because in the British production, the band is visible on stage, you know. They were in the dark pretty much for the entirety of the show. So I told them, this is not really my thing. I'm in front of stage or not. And then they told me, no, we're not going to do it like that. We're gonna write you a part where you're going to play yourself. You're going to be Kee on stage. And I was like, what? Is that even legal? Can you just take like a Broadway show and rewrite it and put new characters in there?
That's incredible.
We're cool.
That must have been a real amazing moment to be a part of.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm playing myself now, back then, but you know, who wants to argue? It's a great idea anyway, and the audience loved it. So from that moment, I sort of became part of the whole Rock of Ages thing, and we did loads of tours with Rock of 80s, which is the spin-off thing, the concert thing, and we did arenas and theaters and all kinds of stuff. And now this November, December, I'm doing the first show of my own, which I'm producing. Me and my wife is producing it, and I'm writing and doing the whole dialogue and everything in it, you know, together with. So it's me and two other singers and a comedian, and the full Kee Marcello band. It's going to be loads of fun. We're doing 12 to 14 shows in Helsingborg in Sweden. And the first 12 shows, they released the tickets, and every ticket is gone. It's sold out. And the premiere is 17th of November, so you know it's going good. That's
sold out early then. Do you think you'll be adding more shows?
I think so. The purchase is going to be high. I mean, you can only get one ticket here and one on some of the shows, and I mean, I think it's going to be a demand for more tickets, and why not?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Right. So, one last question: what's your favourite song to play live?
You mean from Kiev Hearts or any song?
On stage.
Wow, that's a pretty good question. Well, I have to say, I really enjoy playing Superstitious after all these years. It's just something about it, and you know, the song itself is good. And actually, by now, the guitar solo is pretty much more famous than the actual song. So it's always a trip watching the audience every time I go into that melodic solo. And a lot of people go, aha! You know, it's kind of a funny feeling. But it's always great. We turn down houses every night with that song.
Brilliant. So, finally, is there anything you'd like to say to your fans here in the UK?
Oh, I just want to say thanks a lot to all my faithful fans in the UK. I hope to come back on tour soon. We're actually planning a tour early next year, but it doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to make it. I'm too busy right now. So at least the fall of 2018, I'm hoping to come there with Kiev Hearts. I mean, me and the fans in the UK go way back, and it's all started at the Hammersmith Odeon when now it's Hammersmith Hall. We did 2 sold-out Hammersmiths. That was my first experience of London and of the UK in general, and I'll never forget it. When I came to this theater, I was actually kneeling, kissing the floor, knowing that all my idols play on that same floor. Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep, Led Zeppelin.
It's an incredible venue. There's got a lot of history there.
Yeah, and you can feel it in the walls. It's amazing. I love the Hammersmith.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for taking time out to talk to us. You know, all the best for your shows in November and December, and we look forward to hearing more about your tour plans for next year.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks for having me, and hope to meet you when we come to the UK.
Come find me and I'll get you a beer.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Brilliant.
We have.
Thank you, Kee.
Take care, Matt. Cheers.
Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.